Peace and blessings. Welcome to Mental Wellness for the Culture. I am your host, Belinda Gordon-Battle. I am so excited to be here and have the opportunity to connect our community with mental health and mental wellness during July, the month of minority mental health. Minority mental health is so important to Black and Brown people in our community, and I want to make sure we have awareness and understanding of the needs in our community. There's several things that are occurring in the news, and I wanted to bring that to the table today. So in order to make sure we have the experts in the building that can speak to us about mental health and wellness, I invite you to meet Senator Dwight Bullard, Delphine Gervais, clinical therapist, and attorney Sandra Cherfrere. We're so excited to be sponsored by CEAT, Center for Equitable Access and Treatment of Trauma, and also Breakthrough Resources and Care Center. Breakthrough Care and Resources Center are our two sponsors for today. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you for taking the time to be here. I want to start with you, Sandra. Just kind of give our audience an overview of who you are and why the interest in the topic of what's going on in our community regarding TPS, immigration. Why is that important to you at this time?
So it's important to me for a couple of different reasons. First of all, I'm an immigrant myself. Sometimes I forget and I say I'm a child of immigrants because I've been here since I was 5 years old, right? So I've been here forever, and I'm 50 plus, so I've been here a very long time. So sometimes I forget that I'm, an immigrant myself, but that's why it's important to me. And I know what it is to be undocumented because I was undocumented all through high school. I was an undocumented person. I probably was undocumented through all of my primary and secondary education years. I didn't get residency until right before I went to college. I'm a practitioner of immigration law. I've been doing that for over 20 years, so it's an important space to me. And I have family members that have been in this situation, and I understand the stress that people who find themselves in this situation, I understand from all different levels. As a person that was an immigrant, have family members that are immigrants, and as a practitioner.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty, but I think we heard your message that you have been here in America since you were 5 years old. This is important to you because you did spend some time being undocumented. So it's important for us to get this conversation on the table. Delphine, what about you? What brings you to the table and want to discuss this issue at this time?
Good evening. Good morning, everyone. This is a lived experience for myself, similar to Sandra. Growing up in the same community, we actually attended the same middle and high school a few years apart. My parents are twice migrated immigrants, first to the Caribbean from Haiti to St. Martin, and from St. Martin to the States in 1984. Myself being an immigrant coming here at the age of 9, and similar to Sandra, not really understanding what it is to be naturalized, resident, non-resident, until my senior years of high school, realizing that I was not a U.S. resident, and some of the rights and privileges afforded to my classmates, such as applying for schools and being accepted, and then going off to school. I'm the quintessential Dream Act child, if we recall what that was all about, and having to leave the country to go to a U.S. embassy outside of this country to be able to say, all right, can I come back here as a U.S. resident, and can I pursue U.S. citizenship? So this is my lived experience. And of course, it informs who I am as a mental health practitioner in terms of growing up as what would be deemed as underserved, underprivileged, at risk, all the key words that have been coined to describe people like me and people of my community.
Absolutely. I'm hearing that the experiences that both you and Sandra have really added to how you engage the community, how you decide to work in your community and support people in the community. I know Senator Dwight Bullard has had the opportunity to work with multiple communities in South Florida and beyond the South Florida region. Talk to me, Dwight, about what you are doing now, what you see as important in this process right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, first and foremost, as an adult, I spent 17 years as a public school teacher. So that's important to me, just children of all backgrounds, but especially children from immigrant backgrounds, because up until just a few years ago, we used to be operating under a 1982 federal court ruling that said that as teachers, we weren't going to serve as immigration detectives or officers, right? Whoever came into our classroom, we welcomed them. We weren't there to find out, to find out the technicalities on how they got there, who their family were. We were just there to teach. Unfortunately, that's been shifted in the last few years. And so part of the other hat that I wear is really kind of getting people to understand the nature of public policy. Mm-hmm. You know, where we are in this moment right now is a treacherous one. And it's a treacherous one for everyone. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it a little bit more. But the 14th Amendment to the Constitution is the amendment when it comes to people of color. Mm-hmm. Whether you realize it or not, the 14th Amendment was the thing that defined what citizenship is and who's eligible for it. Up until that point, it was predominantly white male landowners who were born here that had some semblance of rights. Mm-hmm. But the 14th Amendment, which happened to have passed in July of 1868. So we're celebrating, its anniversary, its significance in the month of July as well, is the cornerstone that has helped both folks who are born on American soil, mm-hmm. as well as those that have become naturalized, those that fall under the various dimensions of citizenship that we've seen over the last few years, whether they be TPS holders, DACA recipients, etc. Mm-hmm. That's been the centerpiece. And so I want to make sure folks understand the significance of that amendment and why it's so important to protect it.
Absolutely. And I hear that. And I did not realize July was the month that was signed, the 14th Amendment. And when you say cornerstone, in my mind, I have a visual because it feels like that stone is being chipped away. And recently, in the last month or so, maybe the last 2 months, we've received more intel, more conversations, more phone calls regarding the high level of stress that's in the community as that cornerstone is being chipped away. Delphine, have you interacted and engaged with any people in the community that may feel a certain level of stress regarding this current situation?
So as a multi-state licensed clinician, I'm looking at the West Coast clients that are in the state of California who are reporting that their partner of many years is self-deporting back to their home countries. Mm-hmm. So we have families that are going to have to navigate life without a primary breadwinner, without a parent, without a grandparent. So this is not just a local thing, but our clients, whether it's California or Florida, are now presenting with increased stressors. So we have those with the immediate concerns around what is happening with TPS, those who are having residual traumas around their own immigrant stories, those of us who are watching our parents go through what may not be externally defined trauma responses, but we know, as you said earlier, depressed moods, anxiousness can take a parent back, an 80-year-old parent back to their own immigration story of situations that have gone through the course of their country, their native country's circumstances. So whether it's direct experiences or whether it's vicarious, watching someone else experience it, these are definitely things that are coming up. And even now, as we are hearing terms like denaturalization, people are now questioning, what does that mean for me, who I've been a citizen for as long as I could remember? What does that now mean for me? So not only am I seeing family members who are recently entered here, but me who's been here since the 80s and the 70s, what does that mean for me? So it's multi-layers right now, Belinda.
And that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm witnessing. Multiple layers of stress and anxiety and concern. What can we do? What's the message here from Florida Rising, from anyone that's in politics that wants to support? How can we be an ally?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways that folks can chime in. Understanding your rights. Understanding your rights as a citizen, whether born here or naturalized, there are still fundamental protections and rights that folks have in this moment. As an example, you're driving along and are pulled over by police, and police ask for identification for all the people in your car. That is not a requirement under Florida law or federal statute. If a police officer is pulling you over for a perceived traffic infraction, the only person that needs to provide ID is the driver. You provide your ID, your car's registration. You are the only one who needs to interact with the police officer at that moment. The police officer, even if they're ICE affiliated or in cooperation with ICE, they do not have the right to check, detain, or open the doors or react as any other persons in your car. And you, as the car owner or the person driving the car, have every right to deny that law enforcement officer access. Those are some of the rights that folks don't realize that they have. For instance, another example is if someone knocks on your door presenting themselves to be ICE, there's no legal obligation for you to actually open the door, right? There's no requirement under law. If they say that they have a warrant, you ask if that warrant's been signed by a judge. And if they say, well, no, it's not, or even if it is signed by a judge, the fact of the matter is you as a private citizen, under the constitutional rights that you have, do not have to allow that person to enter without a proper signed search warrant. So even if they have an immigration or ICE detainer warrant for the possession of an individual, you as the homeowner, apartment dweller, homeowner, person whose name's on the document, have no obligation to let those folks in. So these are just some of the things that we can do as allies to protect our immigrant brothers and sisters in this moment. I'm sure folks are feeling high levels of anxiety watching these folks get snatched off the street or kidnapped, let's just call it what it is, by these ICE officials. But for the things that you can control, you definitely have control over those things. And that is your home, your car. Feel free to engage and uplift your rights as a citizen. Now, I'm not saying that there won't be consequence, right? The unfortunate reality is that we're living in a world in which people are arresting people and asking questions later. But the reality is a detention hold is 24 hours. So, the ultimate sacrifice that someone who is a U.S. citizen in defense of their brothers and sisters can make would be the unfortunate reality of having to spend 24 hours in a detainer situation if it goes to that extreme. But I just want to remind folks that the same way you don't let Jehovah's Witnesses in your house on Saturday morning is the same way you can block ICE from coming in your house as well.
You're horrible. Listen, information is power. And the more information you have, that helps you de-stress. And that definitely helps you modify and minimize your anxiety. So it's important for allies to have this information so we can be supportive of any and all immigrants. And I really appreciate the culture for allowing us to have this platform to continue the conversation about mental health and wellness, and that Seat and Breakthrough are here to provide that opportunity for us to continue to talk about the needs in our community and how we can help everyone that's an immigrant with these stressors. Sandra, I'm glad you were able to jump back on. I just want your input as to what are some of the resources? Where can we go? Dwight says it's important for us to be educated. Who can educate us in the community?
So is my connection a little bit better now? Can you hear me like a little bit better? Yes. Okay, yeah. So I switched out on the internet. So I want to push back a little bit on what Dwight said, but I'm going to answer the question that you told me, because I am a practitioner of immigration law. And so some of the things that, like he said, that's how it's supposed to be, but there's a way of how it really is, right? And what we don't want to do is to make the mistake to give advice to people who don't fully understand the consequences, and then they find themselves getting hurt because they're pushing back against lawless individuals, right? So you can choose not to open your door, but they can also kick your door in, right? So you need, so and that's the reality of it, right? So that can happen. And I'm here to tell you that they are arresting passengers. They are arresting passengers in the car. Even though they're not supposed to do that, they're actually doing it. Because one, there is immigration case law that says that a person cannot suppress their identity. So you cannot not say who you are, right? You got to say who you are, right? And so the fact that you can't suppress your identity, and now all of these agencies are interconnected, so they can go and run your name and find out whether or not you have lawful status in the United States. That's just the reality of where we are. Now, one of the reasons why I would say in some instances it's better for people to just let the arrest happen. Even criminal defense attorney will tell you that. There's like, if you're getting arrested, even if the arrest is unlawful, just go ahead and do it, because your resistance can make an unlawful arrest become lawful, right? And just let the attorneys and whoever handles it. Now, there's going to be some level of inconvenience for sure. But again, you don't want to aggravate a situation. You don't want to get hurt. And more importantly, you don't want to lose your life, because there are some people, because they have this use of force continuum, and they're going to misinterpret your whatever it is that you're doing, and you can find yourself losing your life. So we advise that even if the arrest is lawful, go ahead, get arrested, and let the attorney sort it out.
Even if it's unlawful, go ahead and get arrested.
Even if it's unlawful, even if the arrest is unlawful, let the attorney sort it out. And oftentimes you'll have these people that are passengers in the car. Just let ICE go ahead and put you in custody, because there's a possibility you're going to be able to bond out from the facility. There are options that you're going to have that is better to have them without a disorderly conduct or whatever kind of arrest you're going to get, or a battery on the Leo, or resisting with or without violence. It's better to just be like, all right, I'm just going to go ahead, and you're going to deal with it. And so the only thing that you may have going into that situation is that you maybe overstayed your visa, or you crossed the border, because even if you did that, there's still ways that you can get status in the United States. So I always just, I understand our rights and how we want to advocate, and I know what he's doing, but on a realistic side of it, there are times when you got to read the room, figure out who it is that you're dealing with, and then and behave yourself according to that.
So let's say, Sandra, that something did come up and that someone ended up having to be arrested. What's the next step once they are arrested? Who are they calling to help them at that point?
So one of the things that we've been trying to do is to tell people to already have plans in place before you get arrested, right? Because there are people who have children. You want to make sure you've made arrangements for your children, because if you go into ICE custody, it may be 12 to 24, 48 hours before you're able to call anybody and let them know you're there. And the last thing you want is for your kid to get out of school at 2:00 and there's nobody there to pick them up, and they end up in like DCF custody or something like that, because now you have different challenges. So folks who know that they don't have status, or they have like temporary status or status that's in transition, we recommended that they go consult with an attorney. So we've been doing some things in the last couple of weeks with an organization that's called FLIC. It's FLIC.org, Florida Immigrant Coalition, I think is what it is, but it's FLIC.org. They offer free consultations with attorneys on Wednesdays at 2:00. So you have to go on their website, register in order for you to be part of that. Go ahead and do that. And so they'll at least introduce you to an attorney that may be able to assist you. And the other thing that we're saying is that people don't like paying lawyers because, they call us crook. We charge too much and all of these things. But we want to shift the narrative and have people think about hiring an attorney as an investment. It's an investment in your future. It's an investment in your kids' future. It's an investment in your ability to stay in the United States. Because there are folks who are probably sitting here that may have ways for them to have a pathway to residency. They may have a pathway to citizenship, but because they won't pay for a consultation for whatever reason, they're sitting on rights they may have and they're passing by. Right? Because there are a lot of different ways in which a person can gain status, but you're really going to need to speak with and consult with a person who fully understands all the opportunities that exist in immigration law to give you the right kind of advice in order for you to shift your status.
Absolutely. I hear what you're saying, Sandra, and I hear everything Dwight is saying too. And it sounds like to me that the most important thing is to have that knowledge, have those resources in your back pocket ready and available to pre-plan. How does that help with the stress and the anxiety and the sadness? And also, I'm thinking about some of this is quite shocking, Delphine, when people see ICE not in uniform, not what's the word? They don't have anything on that identifies them as ICE, and they see this on TV. How are the things that Sandra and Dwight speaking about going to support their mental health and wellness as we work through this for the next 4 to 5 years or more?
So what I hear is the ability to empower self-advocacy. I hear the ability to say, I may not have all the answers, but I'm recognizing that there are people who have the answers. There are people who are willing to join alongside me in this journey that's very uncertain to me. I hear the not being afraid to ask for help. Because when we find ourselves having to head to the hills or head underground, we become tunnel vision in our fears. We become distrustful of people, and we need to be reminded, Mr. Rogers' mother told him, when you become stressed, look for the helpers. And there are so many out here.
Mr. Rogers, who?
Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Oh. It is one of those life. He did a speech to graduating college students. Okay. And his mom was telling him about when there are troubles, look for the helpers. Okay. And we got to remember to look for the helpers.
I love that.
Because that helps mitigate the stressors that come into play. So yes, I am not going to stand up against the powers that be, because I may myself have some residual fears around people of authority, or I may have heard my parents speak about what those in authority used to do in their home country. So that's why people head to the hills or head underground emotionally. And so remembering that we have our allies, we can advocate for self. Although we have the reality of the situation, let's look to see what's within our control. Let's look to see how we can be proactive in these dire situations. Bit by bit, this supports. It doesn't eliminate the stress and the traumas around this, but it does support a person to become more empowered and more emboldened to take what they can into their own hands.
Absolutely. Becoming more empowered, more emboldened. That's very much important and essential to this process. And it has to be done individually and collectively. Everyone has to come together and believe that this is not what we want for our world, for our citizens in the United States of America. And we have to make some choices and believe that this process cannot continue as it is. being empowered is the message that I'm receiving from everybody on the panel today, and I appreciate that message. Are there any upcoming events or activities or meetings or?
Not to cut you off, but before we get into the empowerment is one thing, but again, because I'm in this space, there's some self-awareness that needs to happen too, right? Because and that's why when we talk about consult with someone so people can have an accurate idea of like what their future may look like, because a lot of times it's the future, but sometimes you need to know there are going to be some individuals that are not going to be able to stay, and they need to know this ahead of time, because that the planning is important. So the planning can be, I'm going to be able to stay in the United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
The plan is going to be, I may have a path to citizenship, but your planning may be, I'm not going to be able to stay here and I have to figure out where else I'm going to go. That doesn't mean that you need to go back to your native country, but that means that there's no longer going to be any provisions or ways in which you're going to remain in the United States. And people have to, that's going to be some reconciliation that some folks are going to have to accept. And that's why they're going to need to speak to people like you, speak to Delphine, so they can wrap their heads around that, because that is going to be their truth, right? And to continue to deny that is what your reality is going to be is not going to change the fact that that's what your reality is going to be. And we have to, and again, I don't want to, this is not to be a downer, but that's just the reality of it all, is that not everybody that find themselves in this situation is going to stay. Now, there are some people that are leaving and they probably shouldn't, right? Like they really do have options, but they're like, I don't want to be detained, because they don't know how long that's going to be. And so some people who could stay leave, but there are some people who want to stay that they're not going to be able to stay. And that's some part of that needs to be an honest part of the conversation that we have. And also as you guys, as mental health professionals, to figure out a way to how to have that conversation with folks that's going to become their truth.
And you bring up a good point, Sandra, because it would look different for those in the Haitian community who historically have been hesitant to come to see therapists. So we clinicians have to become more creative, whether you are a pastor and the people trust you to be able to bring God's word, as well as trusted people into your space, house of worship, to bring in others who can speak to this in that safe environment. So I think the challenge for us is to be able to become a bit more creative on how we're going to disseminate information, on how we're going to normalize the realities of these situations, so that people who aren't going to get on a therapy session, who won't get in front of a computer, who won't get in front of a person, that we are able to meet people, person and environment, right where they're at.
Yeah, I would just add, the revolutionary in me says that we also have to practice non-compliance, right? As a means of self-advocacy, right? When we think about this in a historical context, this feels very much like 1850, Fugitive Slave Act, where basically the United States said anybody that was a person of color could be re-enslaved, or that you had to walk around with a special kind of paperwork in order to justify your citizenship. And what I'm reminding folks is that you cannot walk around with a sense of eternal victimhood just because people are operating out of anger, spite, hostility towards people of color, Black and brown people especially, right? And so when I think about FLIC, Florida Rising is a member of the Florida Immigrant Coalition. The advocacy and advice that we're giving comes courtesy of them, courtesy of the ACLU of Florida, to remind you that you do have rights. You do have rights as non-citizens in this country. You have rights as citizens in this country. And although there are, clear, realistic moments of hostility that the people are facing, you don't have to just inevitably walk around with the idea that I could be snatched up at any given time, or walk around with that sense of dire or anxiety hanging over you as a Black or brown person, because you could easily fall victim to this attitude that because you're not white, that danger lurks around every corner. but I also remind you that that's the way we've always lived. So you've kind of had to embody that to begin with.
Right.
So if you've already been operating from a place where you're had to give the speech to your kids about getting pulled over by the police, you know, how to have a particular level of spidey senses about which communities and which neighborhoods you can be in, that's a way that Black folks have survived for generations.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be new additional anxiety added on because of this circumstance. And I just want to make sure we're driving that part home, that we do need heroes in this moment. You know, the same way we uplift the Rosa Parks and the Dr. Kings and the Harriet Tubmans and the Frederick Douglass of the world. You remember they were actively resisting what was considered legal.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So I don't want people to just start to fall in line because they have to, because they feel like, you know, that's the path of least resistance. We also need people who are willing to be resistors.
Yeah. It sounds like we're going to need both. We're going to need both, and we're going to need all to fall into line and get your position, man your position, and be able to be resistors. There are going to be some people that are going to be in compliance. It's going to require even allies to be resistors and some of us to be in compliance. And I think that's important for us to remember, because we want to be able to work together and make sure that we have an opportunity to be supportive of each and every person that's going through this process. What I am also thinking about is, how is this affecting different generations? Like when I think about me, myself, you know, Dwight knows, and Delphine, you know, that my father lives here with me. I take care of him day in and day out. He's in a different generation. And then I have children. So I'm in that sandwich generation myself, where I'm taking care of children, but I'm also taking care of a parent. How is this issue right now that's splashed all over social media, that's all over the news? How are different generations dealing with this? What do you see going on in the community, Delphine?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, being mindful of history is the first thing, and being mindful of what our parents experienced themselves as part of their immigration story is the first thing. I remember when Baby Doc left France to go back to Haiti. That was a very traumatic experience for many people who had left at the time he was president. It was like revisiting this all over again. And so the conversation then was to recognize that there was something below the surface that was just waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when it dropped, everybody's anxiety went up again. And periodically, depending on whatever country you're from, seeing different things that are happening makes you go back to, oh, well, this is exactly what my elders went through. Now you're talking about 3 generations of, and I'll just stick to Haitian immigrants, 3 generations, maybe 4 at this point in this country. Our elders are dying off. And sometimes, unfortunately, the story is dying with them. And so I'm encouraging people to stay up under our elders and to learn and continue to hear the stories, because it's the stories that keep us alive, keep our faith alive in what we come from. It is those stories of endurance, not just resilience, but endurance, of enterprise, of creativity, that we need to remember from our elders. And for those of us who are in that sandwich generation, to remember what our stories were and what we have endured and what rights we know we have and what we can have from our elders, what we have learned from living in this country, to now to be able to self-advocate and advocate. There's a difference between my father's generation and mine. And that comes with being able to know that there is more. They wanted more from me. I speak out more because of that. I am more, I'm a bit more fearless. So I recognize that it's a 2.0 version.
Yes.
And now with the next generation, reminding again, passing on that lineage of stories to say, listen, don't get comfortable. Don't get comfortable in what you see. Don't get complacent, because these things are still present. These problems are still present, whether we are in Jacmel, Haiti, Logan, Haiti, whether we're in Little Haiti, whether we're in North Miami Beach, Pembroke Pines, wherever we land within those 3 generations. Yes. There are some things that have changed exponentially, and there are some things that remain the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The storytelling piece is so important, because reflecting on our history, the history of America is trauma. There's trauma there. And so storytelling allows us to speak about our resilience and how to manage these traumas and continue to make sure that we are progressive in this process of healing, because that's what storytelling is really about. It's sharing the stories of our ancestors, about this generation, preparing the next generation, and let's see if we can continue to heal. Sandra, you were going to share some activities, meetings, organizations that people can tap into.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that were going on, and I wanted to respond a little bit to what Delphine was saying about the multi-generational. So because I'm in the legal space, I hear things a little bit differently, and I have a tendency to want to like compartmentalize and just kind of separate out stuff. Like when we're talking about people, we're talking about different groups of people. People are going to have different roles, and we don't want to just use that different term, because folks have an assignment, right? They're like, everybody have an assignment. So we can't just say people, because we're going to need some of those allies to actually go and do that advocacy. And like the senator said, do them 24 hours in order for this immigrant to be able to get themselves protected, right? So people are going to have different roles, and we're going to have we need to have that understanding. On a generational side, so my mom is still around. My dad passed away, so I am a little different from my mom, right? But we still got, like Delphine said, we have that fighting spirits, because they made sacrifices for us to come here, right? Now I have children that it's going to get weird for them, right? Because they have literally been able to live in a bit of la-la land for like a long time, like not understanding half of nothing. They don't get it. They don't struggle. They are able to order DoorDash and order their food and do all of it. Like they don't understand like what's happening. And they have a parent that's very like, I'm very active in the community. They hear me do shows. They hear me talk, and they still like, I don't know, like some space that's sitting in the house, right?
You're doing too much. You're doing too much.
But the thing is that life is about to get very different for this generation of children. Like my children are in high school. I have to figure out about like, what is college about to look like for them? Because Florida is trying to do this thing where they determine what curriculum and what's going to be taught at universities and this and that kind of stuff. And I got to be like, do I really want them to go to school where them people decide like what they should learn? So this is a very tricky space for at least children that are my age. Now, I had kids older, so mine are a little bit younger than probably the average person my age. They may have the already professional student that's in the workforce dealing with some changes, but it's going to be a very interesting, I don't know, y'all the mental health people that can explain what's going to happen, but I'm worried.
You're worried. I can hear it. I can hear it in your voice that you're stressed about that.
But Sandra, to your point, it's the same thing with the millennials, right? I have a family member that's, we practically helped raise him. He's of the millennial generation, and we're on a WhatsApp, and every now and then he's dropping stuff in there. He's like, another thing and another thing. And I'm 50 years old. I'm like, yeah, ain't nothing new. I've been here since the Reagan era. What else? I'm dating myself, but
the Reagan era. Okay, keep going.
So Reagan gave me my green card. I ain't mad at him.
Well, girl, it took a minute, but it was Bill Clinton for me, but that's neither here nor there. But he's like shell shocked sometimes. He's like, this happened. I'm like, but this is ... And he's like, yeah, but this is new to me. And then I say, but you don't remember when we were ... He's like, yeah, but I didn't care.
Right.
But guess what? You're an adult now, and you do care. So now the generations are like, well, we were caring, you weren't caring, and now we done went like this. So it's, I feel like we're gonna have to make that concerted effort to reach across the generations to make sure that my 81-year-old father, who is anxious because he watches our Haitian parents are watching news like nobody business.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
So
right.
he's vested in what's happening. And so making sure those connections stay strong across the generations is going to be very important in this season.
Definitely. That goes back to what you were talking about earlier, the storytelling, having to share that information so that the next generation picks it up and can continue, because we can't be the only ones carrying the baton. This has to be a shared experience. And we have to make sure that they know that they're responsible and give them responsibilities and empower them to do the work that has to be done on their level. What about you, Senator Dwight Bullard? What do you think is going on with the different generations as you interact and engage?
Yeah, well, I have the luxury of being an old head in the work that I do at this point now.
Yes, you are old. Yeah.
in this advocacy work, I work with folks who are, 24, 25, 30 years old that are ready to risk it all in defense of their people, right? And I appreciate that exists in the world. I think, to your point around trying to connect people to these different entities and organizations, I think that's critical, because I think too often, and we know this from gun violence trauma as well, right? Mm-hmm. People don't feel as though it's going to impact them until it does. Right. And then all of a sudden, they're on high alert. What I would remind folks of is that organizations exist. Mm-hmm. We mentioned Florida Immigrant Coalition. I happen to sit on their C4 board as well. And just to think about that as an entity, right? We're talking about, it's a coalition, which means they have dozens of other partner organizations around the state. We count here in Miami as a member of the Florida Immigrant Coalition. Mm-hmm. Florida Rising, as I mentioned before. Florida Student Power Network. So there are so many, get it where you feel like you need to fit in. If you are a young professional, if you are an older adult, if you are someone seeking to be an ally for immigrant communities, if you are an immigrant yourself, whether you be first, second, third generation, there's multiple spaces for you to plug into, and folks that are doing the work. I'm not, as I mentioned before, yes, I want to know that there are people out there that are willing to put themselves on the line. Mm-hmm. I also know, as a student of history, that is not everyone's role. Right. And when I say not everyone, 90% of folks generally don't get involved in that level. They don't go to the marches. They don't go to the protests. Mm-hmm. They don't do whatever. But you have to be conscious and aware that you have to do something in this moment, right? Because we see an active rolling back of the rights that our forebears, that our parents literally shed blood, sweat, and tears for to get. Mm-hmm. I mentioned the 14th Amendment earlier. That was, the 1860s. Yeah. We're talking about regression of the Civil Rights Act of 64. We're talking about regression of the Voting Rights Act of 65. We're seeing regression. We've already seen regression of Roe v. Wade and so many other policy advances that we've seen for our communities that have been so beneficial to kind of getting us the things that we need. And so we need people at every kind of layer to realize that, whether it is parent talking to child, whether it is lawyer advocating in the courtroom, whether it is teacher talking to student and resisting many of the changes that are happening at the K-12 and post-secondary level. Mm-hmm. We need folks that are willing to say enough is enough. We need people to start banned book clubs. We need people to do all the things. And to your kind of understanding around the mental health needs of folks, it gets us out of this continuum of complaining or reacting to the moment. Yeah. Right? Like when someone says that a book has been banned at your local school library, that's not to say the book isn't available to you. Go out there and buy it on your own. Right. Read it to your children and keep that thing going. When these, again, moments come up and you can't make it to the march, you can't make it to the Torch of Friendship here in Miami, or, you know, make it to the local courthouse when these advocacy moments happen, are you contributing to the bail funds for folks that are willing to get on the line and get arrested? Are you holding workshops? Are you opening up your home to literally protect people?
Yes.
Going back to the first comments that I made, if you know somebody is out here, you know, in a sense of dire straits, to give them a couple hours in your home as a sense of, you know, just normalcy for them, because they don't know who that van that's been parked outside their house, they don't know if that's a cleaning person or ICE.
Right.
You know, and so for you to sit there and say, listen, come on in, have a meal, you ain't got nothing to worry about here, is what Black folks have been doing for generations, whether it's the Underground Railroad or right now.
Right.
And so it's that kind of, that's got to be the compliment that we as community of colors do. You know, the hope for me is that this brings this nonsensical conversation around who's Black and who's not, that we've been having for far too long, about who got off on what stop of the Atlantic slave trade first, has been living for far too long. I'm hoping this creates a sense of deeper connection between Black American, Black immigrant, Black Caribbean, Afro-Latinos, and the whole 9 yards, because right now we got one common enemy.
Yes, one common enemy.
We need to protect ourselves from that common enemy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bring in the compassion, bring in the empathy. Let's align ourselves and make sure that we are supporting each other through this process. I know that SEAT is available and providing services, mental health services and support for anyone in need. And also Breakthrough. Breakthrough is not just a place for mental health services. They also are a resource. And that means they're connected to the community and can actually give us an opportunity to get our needs met, directly connect to people that can meet our needs. So I'm really proud of those two sponsors. We are at the end of our show, but we have a rapid fire moment. And the reason we do rapid fire is because I want everyone that has access to this show to know that Senator Dwight Bullard is a real person. Delphine Gervais is a real person. Attorney Sandra Cherfrere is a real person, and that she's able to be genuine and real and authentic with each and every one that has access to this program. So are you ready for the rapid fire?
I guess.
Yes, don't be scared.
Let's
Please
go.
share with our audience your favorite natural fresh juice right now.
Fresh squeezed pineapple. 100%.
Pineapple?
Oh yeah, all day, twice on Sundays.
Yeah. Anything ginger carrot combination, something like that. Yeah.
Anything lemonade. I'm just, even now, I'm always putting splash of lemon juice in my water. I love tart, anything that's tart.
I love that. I love that. I'm right now into coconut water. I know it's not really a juice, but when I was in Ghana last year, I had coconut water every morning, and like it just gives me the opportunity.
Electrolytes.
Yeah, and it gives me the opportunity to pretend like I'm in Ghana. So I'm into that. What about your favorite vacation? Where did you travel to or have traveled to that you would encourage all of us to get your coins together and go on this trip? It could be near or far.
I definitely encourage everyone to touch land on the continent of Africa at least once in your life. I've been blessed to do it a couple times. Just setting foot on the continent will change your whole perspective, full stop. But one of my favorite places that I keep telling myself I got to get back to soon is Morocco. Encourage everyone to check out Morocco.
Morocco. Okay, I love it.
I'm with you, Senator Dwight. I just made it to the motherland and actually to the mother city of Cape Town, South Africa a few weeks ago. I would encourage anybody to just make it to any one of the countries, but I definitely want to go back.
I love that. I love that. Sandra.
Yeah, so I've been on the continent too, a couple of different places, and I've traveled a lot, but I'm going to go Caribbean. I've had like one of my best vacations was in St. Lucia. And I would say, I for whatever reason, I just had a great time there. And so I'm going to go Caribbean and say St. Lucia.
I love it. I could travel with all of you. I'm all for Africa. I've only been to Ghana, but I got some other places I want to go. But I love St. Lucia. Oh, I love it. This would be great. We could travel together. Talk to me about your vision. How do you see the next 5 years? It could be personal, it could be community, it could be worldwide. It doesn't matter.
What do you want to have go first? Because I wanted to make a point, and I think I could make it in this moment, right? Okay. So when the senator was talking about like all of this division, Americans, Caribbean and all of this stuff, right? One of the things that I want everybody else to understand, like all the people of color, everybody else that's probably not a white male that's living in the United States. Everything you have, you're standing on the shoulders of African Americans, right? The fact that anybody from the Caribbean, anybody from India, Asia, China, white women, whoever, all of it, everything you have is because of the work and the struggles of African Americans. And I don't think that's enough, and I don't think that's understood, right? So I could come here, talk all this smack, but I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for what African Americans have done, tolerated, put up with, fought for throughout the history of this country, right? So that's what we want to understand. And I think if once we start to understand that, give African American people their props, a lot is going to be different, right? Because you guys are the mental health professionals. Imagine you're in your home and you're being tortured by the people that you're supposed to live with that brought you here. And then other folks that you created space for to come and visit, they're like torturing, talking to you crazy and sideways too, right? There's a psychological warfare that's going on with that. And what I want to see happen in the next 5 years is that people give credit to African Americans for creating a space in order for them to be in America. And I think once that happens, we're going to have more people that's going to fight for this country and make it the place that we know it can be, right? This experiment is not going to happen when everybody continue to act like that's an Asian problem, that's a Spanish problem, that's a Cuban problem. All of it happens because of what the work African Americans have done. And when we include them and acknowledge what they did in this fight, we're going to go a lot further.
I really appreciate what you just said, Sandra, because I am from rural Virginia, and I'm not going to say how old I am. I'm younger than most people think. Anyway, but I have never actually heard anyone say what you just said. I really have never heard anyone from the Caribbean, any other nationality that's in America say those words that you just said. And there's something very healing about that. And I hope if your vision is for that message to be shared, that we find safe space and allow that to happen, because that could actually heal some of the trauma that resonates within our community. So I appreciate you so much for sharing that. And I think we're gonna have to come back to that and like dig a little deeper at another time.
That's a conversation.
But
it's a conversation. And Delphine and I, we grew up with Haitian parents, and I'm telling you, even like my Haitian parents used to say some stuff, and I'm just like, ma'am, we are
that's another conversation.
That is a conversation for another time.
Bookmark that one, right, Delphine? What are you thinking, Delphine, for your vision for the next 5 years?
Man, I think for me personally, because you know me, I it's a milestone year, right? And in my mind, I'm halfway to 60. I'm like, oh my gosh, y'all gotta deal with that. But I think for me, I envision soft landings, places where I could land softly, personally, relationships that continue to be enriched, that despite all the stuff that we're going through, we're still able to persevere. And I don't like using that word resilience. I don't, like, can we just table that word? But definitely to continue to persevere and thrive. Yeah.
I love that. Make an effort to persevere and to thrive for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's healing also. Thank you for sharing that. Dwight.
Yeah, I'll give advice that my favorite professor at FAMU gave me, and that was get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, the unfortunate reality is we're early in this administration, right? Like, it feels like it's been 4 years. It's only been about 7 months.
Right.
And so we still got a ways to go to deal with the attitudes, you know, the hatred. And let's just call it what it is, hatred.
It's hatred.
Like, there's literal malice for people that are non-white, non-male at this moment. And so everyone, unfortunately, is going to have to feel the effects of that. And so where the progress comes in is learning to be comfortable with that discomfort to a degree so that you can move different. Because I think too often times being comfortable creates complacency.
Yeah.
And that is what a lot of folks are unfortunately, you know, when people feel as though they're unimpacted or this isn't going to impact me in some way, and then have to wake up to a new reality. So that would be the advice I would give for the next 5 years.
I love that. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I'm shocked that you could not go an entire hour without mentioning FAMU. But I see you didn't make it. And on that note, I want to remind everyone that July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. We have a responsibility to create safe spaces because we already know that these are going to be uncomfortable times for us, for our immigrant community, for the allies that support them. We have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And in the midst of that, make space so that we can heal and be supportive of each other. Find the resources that are in your community. Use the resources that are in your community. I'd like to thank Breakthrough Care and Resource Center and SEAT again for being our sponsors. Thank the culture for allowing mental wellness and the culture to continue to develop these conversations and discussions. Thank you for everything that was said tonight by our panelists, and we look forward to seeing you again on Mental Wellness for the Culture in the very near future. Good night, everybody.